My name is Bobi Foster-Grahler, and I am the chair of the criminal justice programs for the Pierce College District.
Hi, my name is Mary Weir. I'm the prison education program manager at Highline College, and I also coordinate the criminal justice program there and teach in it.
I'm Ryann Leonard. I teach criminal justice and psychology at Big Bend Community College and a center representative for education and outreach.
I'm Cindy Bassage, and I think you all know I work with Bobi Foster-Grahler at Pierce College and in the criminal justice programs, and I also assist with the Homeland Security Emergency Management programs.
Hi, I'm Linda Crerar, and I'm the director of the State Center of Excellence for Homeland Security Emergency Management.
Thank you all for being here. So Bobi, I want to start with you for the first question. How has operations changed?
Since the COVID crisis?
Since the COVID crisis.
I think everything's changed. For example, all of our work is remote. We have Zoom meetings. Our working with students has changed a lot. Mostly Cindy was working with a student yesterday that would take about 30 minutes if we were at the campus, and it took about 3.5 hours to help a student in slight crisis yesterday. I think that for Pierce College, at least, we have our administration's doing an amazing job of actually getting ahead of most things. So they're trying to help out faculty, staff, and students be successful inside of this crisis. But I think the main thing that it did is create a larger or a higher number of barriers for people. So things that would take a few minutes take a long time, trying to get a hold of students trying to get a hold of faculty, student services. And I think we're just getting better at it as we get more time into it.
I agree. Everything has changed, and I think everything takes longer. All of our classes are online, student services are online, advising is via Zoom. For teachers like myself who've never taught online before, we are trying to navigate how to create a supportive, inclusive learning environment online. Students are also transitioning to this new learning environment and trying to navigate how to do schoolwork while also juggling childcare, limited access to internet, and resources such as the library and in-person tutoring.
For me, very little's changed. I mean, I've been teaching fully online for several quarters and doing advising and stuff online. The difference for me, I think this quarter is I'm really focused more on my students' mental health and checking in with them more, extending a bit more grace on some assignments. Globally, my colleagues are stressed out. I think all of us now understand that bandwidth issue and understand that limit of bandwidth that we have to work with each day. Faculty were rushed to change to online who've never taught online. And as somebody who has taught online for 10 years, there is a lot of thought that has to go into online and mental resources that are required to fully think it through. And we didn't have the time for that. So faculty are stressed, they miss their students. So there's a grieving process that's happening, as well as, just really struggling how to support those students who are absent and aren't reachable where we could possibly find them somewhere on campus. So I just think, mental wellness has been the thought of this quarter.
Cindy, I want to ask you something. How do you think students are coping with the change?
I think it depends on the students. I think the students that have worked online before are doing great. They have no problems. They don't even want to hear from us. Those that have never taken online classes because they do not like online classes are stressing, and I haven't heard from any lately, so I'm hoping they have gotten through and know how to work the system now. The student Bobi and I worked with yesterday was totally stressed out because he's used to coming to the counter to be able to take care of everything, and there's no counter, and he said, what do I do? So basically I just did everything for him. And it took time because I had to go from one department, instead of just walking, I had to call and wait to hear back, and then call and wait and hear back. And I even found that kind of frustrating on myself. And then one department was all in meetings. And so I just went to the registrar and she assisted me with what I needed their help with. So okay. I think it's frustrating for them. By the time we don't have to do it anymore, though, they might like it.
seems to be the consensus to everybody, that depending on the student and how well they're doing. Mary, I want to ask you about, you mentioned resources for students that they may not have, like access to computer or internet. How do you or Highline College in particular, how do they help students get the resources they need during this time?
So Highline has been able to distribute a lot of Chromebooks and hotspots, and that has been hugely helpful. I've worked with students to try to access those, and that has been a wonderful resource. I still have had some students who just have spotty internet. So when I taught a class yesterday, I had one student holding up a sign like, "I'm frozen, I can't participate in discussion." But I think that the college is doing everything that it can possibly, which is great. But I still think that there are some students who, are possibly slipping through the cracks. And what I'm doing personally is, like Ryan said, sort of trying to extend more flexibility, trying to make sure that expectations are really clear, and as always. And another thing is that students have talked with me about the difficulty of time management when there's so little structure in their daily lives. So I'm having synchronous Zoom classes, and I think for some students that can actually be a helpful way to just see other students' faces, to connect with folks in real time. So I think that's another way that I've been trying to support students.
Bobby, same question.
So like Highline, we also have, we've given out over 500 Chromebooks. We've taken a lot of the computer or laptops that we use inside of classrooms and rented those out or given those out to students in hotspots. We've also allowed students to come to our parking lot in their cars and use our Wi-Fi in that way. However, that creates more issues, right? So you can come to the parking lot, but you can't use a bathroom. You can't plug into anything. So, there's just like small things we're trying to do. The other thing is that I think that synchronistic teaching is really a good thing for some students. I don't do it myself this quarter, but I know that people that are in synchronistic classes seem to be using that as a way of having community. My spouse teaches synchronistically, and the people in her class have been talking about how that's really helped their mental health, being able to see people. And they are all over the country taking these classes because many students have gone home, which may not be close to the college. And so that's really important stuff. The other thing that we're trying to do is have Zoom office hours, more time that we can connect with students. Even though my classes aren't synchronistic, I'm trying to create group time with me and the different groups, because I do a lot of group work online, and that seems to be helping a lot. Also, I had a student this morning who called me. We had an appointment for my office hours, and she's struggling with a different class, and she talked about how she's just like spent hours yesterday just bawling because she's so stressed about it. And so, being able to talk to her about it, let her know she's not alone, that this is a common thing for people to be going through, and then connecting her with resources. And then I usually at Pierce College, Cindy and I would walk people to resources. We're not very good at just saying, go down to room 307 and talk to somebody, but we can't do that. So now what I did is I emailed all the resources with her on the email and asked for them to respond back to her instead of making her do that first thing. So I think that students are coping, and we're doing everything we can. And the interesting part, I think, is that we don't know what we don't know yet, right? So we're trying to figure out what students want. And one of the things that I think that Pierce College is doing that may be more detrimental is that we are inundating students with emails. And like, we care about you, and here's some things you can do. And those emails are really long. And I had a group meeting yesterday, and I asked a student if he had seen this email from Pierce College about something. He's like, I get 20 or 30 of them a day. I just kind of say, does that really matter or not? And so he doesn't even look at them. And I don't think he's the anomaly. Even myself, I'm getting emails and it's like, if you can't give it to me in bullets, I don't really have time to do that because teaching now takes so much more time in order to have those connections. So I think that that's just one thing that we could work on better, is what's really most important to let our students know, so that they are like, oh, this is from Pierce, this is important.
Ryan, I remember you mentioning how some of the faculty at Big Bend don't even have computers or laptops or access to internet. How is Big Bend helping those faculty?
I think it's really about, just like Bobi said, we don't know what we don't know. So it takes people to advocate for themselves and to really reach out and say, you know, this is what I need. And I think all of the colleges really intend goodness. But I think, you know, I'm getting emails from a few colleges that I'm a part of, and we are just overwhelmed with words that are coming to us. And even though there's sort of words, it's really, there's a lot. And so I think that, you know, what we're doing well for faculty is we're saying, you know, where do you need support? Please tell us, and we're going to try and meet your needs. And they're trying. But I think one of the issues that I want to bring up that's not a part of your question, but I think is really important to understand, is for the first time, I think people are experiencing maybe stress, anxiety, symptoms of depression, and they don't know that's what it is. They don't understand that the reason they're tired is because of, you know, chemical imbalances and lack of sun and no social contact, or this fact that everybody in their household is snapping at each other is due to stress. And I think just that lack of knowledge of mental health and that lack of self-awareness that a lot of us have who don't study this every day is really impacting more people. And so I would like to see the colleges, and I think some are, really helping students and faculty to understand, and staff in general, to understand, you know, the mental wellness aspects that we need to be focusing on, and that those have to come before we can even expect any quality, you know, academic work from anyone. So that's what I think is a big need. And I think we're starting to understand that and get there. Some of the college emails I've seen are now starting to focus on that.
Ryan, thank you for saying that, because this morning I was asking myself, why am I so tired? What's wrong with me? Why don't I have the energy that I had? So thank you for saying that. That helped me.
I just want to add something. I think that this whole crisis has really thrown into sharp relief, like the need to sort of, I don't know, see the humanity in each student, to teach the whole student, to not be so focused on content and learning objectives that you ignore the reality of the lived experience of the student. And I think that Ryan's point about really ensuring the mental wellness of students before we can go on to all of the super important, interesting things that we all need to teach, right, is really important, because ultimately we're not going to be successful if our students are not healthy, right? And I think that, I mean, of course, I think that what I teach is fascinating and extremely important. But at the same time, like, these classes I also see as sort of filling another need that students may have. And maybe the students don't all get or like the structure that they have in my classes. But if some of them do, then I think that that's also a real gift that I can try to give to my community in this crisis.
Our next question is internships. Ryan, or online learning experience. Ryan, I know you mentioned students doing a crime analysis day. How has that been affected due to COVID-19, and along with internships? Like, how do students gain that real work experience? Has virtual internships been a concept you thought about?
I think it's about being creative, and I think it's about using our resources as well. So, I mean, I have great relationships with people who already work in the field that my students want to participate in. And so trying to bring as much of their experience in live conversation, or even in, you know, one-on-one interviews that they get to do just to learn more about their careers, right now they can't experience it. And normally spring quarter is the time we're out running, hiding in buildings, you know, playing cops and robbers and doing all of those fun hands-on activities. And we just can't due to the crisis, but it doesn't mean we can't learn from, you know, videos that are out there, or talking to experts in the field, or having them come and share their experiences. You referenced our crime scene in a bag. And so we're trying to figure out for investigations, a big fun part of that class, but important, is getting that hands-on exposure to what does crime analysis look like and how does that work. And so, you know, working with companies and trying to find creative ways, we're going to put a crime scene in a bag and some fingerprint powder and some things they can take home and do some fun activities, and hopefully involve their families, which will like increase that love of learning for maybe younger siblings in the home or kids that they have, and see that, wow, college is fun. And they still get to learn. So it's creativity from instructors, and thank goodness, you know, the criminal justice faculty in this state, as well as even at my college, we have a team of people. And there's no way that I could do what I do without having other colleagues and experts and my advisory committee to be able to talk to and run ideas off of, because I have that village, and I need that village right now to help us get through this time. So I think just, you know, being creative, and I would love to see, you know, maybe, I know that Bobi and Mary too are both very involved in having people get into the field and work with the experts. So I'd love to see what they have to say too.
I'll go first. This quarter for our internships, they just fell. Even people who are currently in internships, their hours got cut just like it's Tuesday and we're done. So I had to reassess that pretty quickly, because we want to make sure that students could graduate. And I didn't have this great idea like Ryan did. We put most of our students into other classes, such as abnormal psychology or homeland security, or something that we thought would help them in their career field. We did have one student who had a job, who was working. For her internship, she found a job, and I forgot what the title is, but she goes and she picks up bodies after people have died. And so she's doing an internship, and along with all the emotional aspects of that, I think one of the powerful aspects she's getting from that is that she's having to learn how to talk to people, because when you go to someone's house and you're there to pick up the body, you know, they're in a lot of pain, and so she's getting a ton out of that way. The other thing is that I don't know how this is going to work, but I heard the governor talk about it. I was working with Captain Phil Johnson from Fish and Wildlife, and they're looking at trying to get students to do some work with Department of Health to kind of do that investigative tracking of where COVID came from. And so that could be done virtually. So I have a meeting with him next week to try and figure that out. And that would be something that if we could do that, that'd be something that we'd share with all the criminal justice programs to get some students out there. And I think that's an amazing way to help out. And much like we talked about at our last work group meeting, a way that we can give back during the crisis. So maybe we can't have our students go to the hospitals and help hand out masks or whatever it is, but they could be doing this work, calling people who may have been in contact with someone who's become positive with COVID or something like that. So we're still just trying to work it out. Most of the people that I work with in the field are they're pretty overwhelmed themselves. So asking them to take on another person is a lot to ask. But I think that what I do is let them know if there's something that they need help with, that one of our students could do remotely, that our students are willing to do that for internships, for volunteering, or just because I think that's what CJ students are. They're just people who want to help out.
Yeah, so this term I was really just, trying to keep things working. So we have one student at the King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office who has actually been interning there for quite some time. This was just her first quarter of getting credit for it, and she's been able to continue actually virtually because she knows a lot of the systems already. I don't think that would have been possible if she had been totally new. And then for a lot of our other interns, we're also sort of doing what Ryan said, sort of asking them to do a lot of interviews with people in the field to try to assess how their work has changed. So even though they're not able to be out in the field, they are still getting to, you know, talk with people who work in the field and sort of get those perspectives. I agree with Bobi that it's a lot right now to ask, you know, our partners that are already really stressed to take on interns, but it's something that, you know, I'm certainly very interested in trying to do moving forward. And, you know, the idea of, you know, having sort of like an investigative, you know, public health internship in the future is something that, of course, I think would be wonderful for both the students and our community.
Linda, I have a question for you.
Yes.
You looking into simulations a few years ago.
Yeah.
So do you think there'll be a rise and increase in simulations in education and industry?
Yeah. Yeah, Kelly, I actually just turned to my other computer and started, because that was a question as I was listening to the discussion about knowing that we do have a simulation center down in Oregon at the university, and I can't think of do you remember the name of the university? And I can't think of it right at the moment.
Concordia University.
Concordia has a simulation center that actually could be accessed online, and literally has the equipment and all of the tools to run any number of different scenarios. So they can do fire scenarios, they can do emergency management, law enforcement, and everybody becomes a player, and you don't have to be physically there to actually be a player because it's all virtual. And so if you happen to be at Concordia and play, you go to a terminal and virtually interact with the others doing the simulation. So I am making a note that we're going to get a hold of Concordia, because we do have a relationship with them, and we have been invited and gone down and actually done some of their simulations for about the last 5 years. So we will follow up on that, because I think that that is an opportunity. I have tried for years through the center to get enough funding to actually create a simulation center at one of the colleges, and we've looked at Pierce College, but to do that, you're talking probably close to, unfortunately, $1 million to put a simulation center that could do what we would need it to be able to do for our system. But Concordia did it. They're a private university. It cost them a little bit over $1 million to put theirs together, but they actually have used it, and they use it for corporate, private industry, public health, you name it, all over the region. And so they're able to actually make money as far as being able to offer that service. So I think it is definitely something that we've got to put back on the radar screen and look at how we can maximize or look at that opportunity and maybe work with the university, which is just right across the river from Vancouver.
Cindy, my next question is for you. How has student outreach changed?
We're just now talking about outreach. Do we want to do outreach? We were a little concerned that if we did outreach, how would we approach it? As in, we don't want people to think that we're doing this and making money on the situation that we're in right now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all still kind of in questioning. We're looking at work. Hopefully we're going to be working with Marcom to be doing something.
Mary, what about you? How has outreach changed?
You know, maybe ask me in like 3 months.
Okay.
I think for right now, I mean, yeah, we just finished the 3rd week of our quarter. So I have just really been trying to make sure that everything is running smoothly. And I mean, all of our big senior signing day, high school visits, all of our big sort of campus-wide or organized by outreach and recruitment events have all been canceled. So yeah, I can speak just anecdotally that I have had, it seems like more people contacting me who've said, you know, hey, I think I might be out of work. You know, can you tell me more about these programs? So, but that's just sort of anecdotally.
I think outreach is changed for me. I mean, with all of my advisees, I was completely online off last quarter and remote. I wasn't even in the same town as my students, so there was no chance of face-to-face. We kind of devised a different advising system, and I think for this quarter, that's going to be a big deal for people, is how do we advise students? And it's not just for one quarter, but we have to advise them in most colleges for summer and fall. So just figuring out the logistics of that. And I think workforce programs are fortunate because a lot of us have program plans. So it's kind of, well, this is what we're offering, so this is what you can take. I think for Bobi and I, who have a little bit more academic base to our program, there's a little more flexibility. So it's going to be a little trickier. But I think, you know, just figuring out how to do things online, one of the things that a lot of people don't understand is you need a lot more support for that. You need the IT backups. You need the people in the background who are facilitating the meeting or helping to make sure that everybody is, you know, the chat window is being monitored and other people are, you know, questions are being answered. And I know my college doesn't have that support process in place. We don't have the staff for that. So I think if this continues, a lot of that support process is going to need to be enhanced, whether that happens through the CARES money or happens in other ways. It's something colleges are going to have to think about. Highline College has an amazing faculty support team and IT team that is just overwhelming with support, but not every college has that. I mean, we have one e-learning person and he's kind of a half-time. And so there's no way that he can help the faculty do what's needed. So that I think is the biggest issue, is as we do some of these like events and conferences and things virtually, it's not just me putting on the event and having the speaker jump in. There's 3 other people that have to be in the background to really make that happen, and to make it look professional. So
this is the final question, and I'd like to start with Bobi. And the question is, where does education go from here in terms of online and grounded courses?
I think that's the question that most administrations are looking at. Like I said, our president has an open Zoom meeting every week, and I'm always asking questions around, you know, advising, because that's important, and PR, and what's the new normal look like. And for Pierce College, I think that we've done a good job of staying just in a good spot. So we're taking everything to online for summer quarter. They made that decision very early, and I thought that was a very wise decision. And we're already looking at fall quarter, at the most having all of our classes be hybrid, because if we have to go back completely online, that's easier. So I think that online is going to be taking a much bigger role for us in the future. I think that students are going to start realizing how much more convenient it is. And to be honest with you, even as an instructor, my gasoline bill has gone down so much that I can't imagine what it's doing for students that don't have to go to school every single day for 2 or 3 hours. So I think education is going to look different. I am really lucky at Pierce College. We have a really big ELAD or department that helps us with all of our online stuff. So we have lots of great ideas, and I think that that's going to be expanding. The other thing I want to pop back to something I think Mary and Ryan said about students and this mental health time, and how do we get them connecting with one another. It was kind of strange. I was doing an assignment, and my students were doing their discussion boards, and they're saying, yeah, well, I talked about this with my 54-year-old jaded grandfather. I talked about this with my nephew who's a police officer. And I was like, gosh, that's really smart. They're doing that. And I went back and looked at my assignment that I made, a while ago, and it said, you know, and talk about this with someone in your family or in your community. And I was thinking, dang, that was really smart of me, that that it already created space for them to have interactions with people in their life. And so, you know, I think that kind of takes a little bit of the burden off of faculty, because I think faculty are holding a huge emotional, I can't think of the word right now, but aspect of our students, a burden, that's what I was going to say. And just doing that connections with other people that Ryan and Mary were talking about, and Cindy, I know Cindy's going to be doing some Zumba and yoga later today with our school. You know, that helps. Everything we can do to help our students not only get the content and the outcomes that they need from our courses, but also continue to have that community. And I think that that idea that Mary had talked about with that forming this foundational idea of creating a holistic education, that I think many people in criminal justice already do. I think that it's just automatic that we build community, because that's what we're all about. But I think that might become more formalized as we realize in some of the academic programs that, wow, these students need more help than just me telling them, you know, what parts of speech something is. I think that's going to be a way of making online teaching and teaching in general just look a little different. But as to what it's going to look like completely, I don't think the people with the power know that yet. And I think the important part is people that are faculty and staff need to be having conversations with the people that get to make those decisions, so that they can make really well-informed decisions.
I don't think that I have too much to add. You know, I mean, we are definitely online for the summer. We are building in flexibility into our fall schedule so that if we need to switch online, we can. I mean, if we need to sort of switch to totally remote, we can. But I do think I appreciate one thing that Highline has done, which has been to call sort of this term, not online learning, but emergency remote teaching, to really sort of make the difference between what we're trying to do in terms of taking a class that was intended to be face-to-face and putting it all online in a week and a half versus doing the really thoughtful, you know, building of an online course. And so I think that, you know, that's what we had to do because of the situation. But I think moving forward, you know, hopefully moving towards more of that, you know, really thoughtful, using all of the resources that we have at the school and outside of the school with each other through the CJ State Working Group to really create robust online classes.
I think, you know, one of the benefits of this is that we are becoming de-siloed. And I think we're seeing a lot more cross collaboration. I think we're seeing faculty in a bunch of different disciplines going, well, how do we do writing, and how do we do experiential learning, and how do we do presentations? And so I think there's so much creativity that's happening right now. I hope that we have time over the summer to really digest all of those things that we've been exposed to, and choose that best path for our programs. I think the other benefit of this is that admin and maybe some of those people who have privilege and power are going to see some of those equity issues, and they're really going to become pronounced. And I think we're going to also see a lot of people who have come up with solutions of how to address some of those equity issues, and hopefully those ideas are able to be shared with those, like Bobi said, who can make those decisions, and that we'll start to see ways that we can support students who don't have maybe that privileged path that a lot of us in academia have experienced. And so I think we get to consider, you know, what is really essential services? What are those things that our students really need? And the benefit of a community college, and it saddens me when I see that word being removed from some of our college titles, but that community aspect is so important. And we have such it's kind of a gift in my mind that we get to be able to connect with students in all different aspects of their life. And like Bobi said, I think in criminal justice, social sciences, it's a natural part of our discipline to think holistically about that person. And we just get to do that on a grander scale. So I'm excited to see what happens in education now in the future. I hope we all get a chance to breathe and digest is really my hope. But I think we're going to have some pretty strong colleges and programs out of this. And I'm so excited for criminal justice programs and Homeland Security because we've been working together for years already on this. And so I think we get to kind of model that now for some of the other programs and just kind of see what happens. So you know, our college is going the same way as the others for summer online, fall, you know, kind of thinking it could go either way. So I think that's a new thought process for admin, is working in those what ifs, and it's going to be a really good thing, I think, for education overall.
I think that's a good place to end it, on a positive note, unless anybody has anything they want to include, anything we maybe glossed over.
Well, the only thing that I would just share with folks, and because I have been in the emergency management business for now going on 50 years, crisis, the Chinese define crisis as both danger and opportunity. And I have always embraced that thought about when you are in a situation that throws you off kilter or upsets and destabilizes your normal routines. You are the absolute most adaptive. You are willing to change and do things that you ordinarily would not have been able to do because you want to get back into that normalcy feeling, or something that feels a little bit more stable. And so people are willing to really change their lives and their habits. And we all have had those experiences in our lives of where we've had a critical crisis and suddenly went, oh, okay, I guess I can eat better, and I guess I can exercise, and I guess I can really radically, and I'm of course had that experience this last year myself from a health issue, but we can take this crisis and really look at thinking outside the box and doing things that we talk about, but we haven't mobilized or actualized. And so we can come out of this better, more effective, with an opportunity, and be healthier, more flexible. So, that's the yin yang of crisis, danger and opportunity.